So every year I have the great pleasure, of course, of introducing Professor Michael Porter and bringing him on for his opening keynote, and then he'll be in conversation with Elizabeth Littlefield of OPIC and Hikmet Ersek of Western Union. You know, when you introduce somebody like Professor Porter with his long and storied career, I always think to myself, what's the best way to sort of sum that all up? And what I would say in bringing him on this year, and the thing I appreciate about Professor Porter and the work I've done with him over the last 3 or 4 years and getting to know him, is he's always looking around the next corner. He's always asking the next question, whether it's in shared value, whether it's through his work in the Social Progress Index, and asking about how that all adds up to greater change and acceleration of change around the world. So without further ado, please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Professor Michael Porter. Thank you.
Well, what an amazing feeling being here this morning and looking at all of you and just seeing, first of all, so many friends from around the world, from the journey, the battles, the evolution of this work and these ideas. And for those of you that I don't know, an opportunity to engage with more organizations, more companies, more NGOs. Fundamentally, this is all about kind of, first of all, rethinking, but then reframing what we do in the various organizations represented in this room. And the concept of shared value really starts with companies. But as Justin said, and I think we'll talk over these 2 days, it's not just about companies. It actually has to do with every institution that surrounds companies and impacts competition. And that's NGOs, and that's government entities, and we'll have an opportunity to, again, explore that over the coming days. I think the notion of shared value, I think, is now hopefully well understood to most everybody in this room. Fundamentally, we're talking about how business engages in society. And we've been on a journey there in business for the last 40 or 50 years, even before, about how to think about that and how to operationalize that. I think most all of us in business want to do good. We want to add value to the world. But the question is how to do that. And shared value is the next big chapter, we believe, in actually how to make impact in a very profound way in business. Shared value goes beyond being generous. It goes beyond avoiding harm and stopping things that are counterproductive. Being generous and stopping things that are counterproductive is good. It's profoundly important. And we're getting better at it in business, thank God. But the premise of today, this discussion, and the whole shared value idea, and everything we do at the Shared Value Initiative, is that we can go farther than just being generous and just avoiding harm and doing things that are working in the wrong direction in our communities and in our society. We can actually add value in business to societal issues and meeting the most important societal needs. We can actually add value. But really the key that unlocks that added value is actually doing what businesses do in approaching that task, which is using a business model and making a profit. And the basic idea here is that if we can tackle societal needs and societal issues with a business model that actually generates a profit, we have achieved the most powerful force we'll ever get in changing the world. Because if we can do that, we can scale. We can scale. We can serve millions and billions of people and solve these problems, not just make little Band-Aids, not just help a little bit, but actually solve the most important problems in the world. That's the promise of shared value. And over the last few years, as we've been building out this idea, I think the initial effort has been proof of concept. First of all, defining what shared value is, the levels of shared value, all the things you've heard me talk about and FSG and all of our colleagues and partners have talked about now over the last few years. We've been focusing on the shared value concept and how to think about that concept. But ultimately, the idea here is that we've got to connect societal needs and societal problems and societal challenges to our business in a very direct and tangible way. So today, what I'd like to do is actually turn from looking at it from the shared value side to actually looking at this question of how this works and how we do this from the business side. So if you'll indulge me a little bit, we're going to go to business school now. We're not going to be in a world where there's a lot of people that are, really focused on the societal issues. We're going to go to business school. And I think the more we can understand competition and strategy and how businesses really compete and how they can really succeed in creating competitive advantage and winning in the marketplace, the more deeply we can understand those classic core ideas about business, I think the more powerful we can make shared value. And the clearer and more profound the opportunities that we will discover in creating shared value. So what I'd like to talk about today is I'd like to talk about strategy. And of course, this is my favorite subject. So Justin is deeply concerned about how much time I'm going to spend right now. And probably Hikmet and Elizabeth are too. So I'm going to try to do this very quickly. But we're going to talk about strategy. And when we understand the core ideas of strategy, I think hopefully we'll see how shared value is so powerful. Because it solves a fundamental problem that companies have all the time when they're trying to figure out how to compete in whatever field they're in, which is how to create and sustain an advantage. Now, how do we think about strategy? Well, I think that the core idea of strategy is that strategy is not doing the same thing as your competitor. There's no one best way to compete in any business. There's no one way to win. And if you get into a battle with your competitor where you're doing the same thing as your competitor, where you're offering the same services to meet the same needs in the same way, that's a zero-sum competition. It's very hard to win that game. If all you're doing is doing the same thing as your competitor and trying to do it a little bit better, you're probably going to get into a price competition, crater your profitability, and, not win. And by the way, if you're all doing the same thing, you're actually not adding as much value to the consumer because this consumer only has one choice. You're all doing the same thing. They can just choose which of you to buy that same thing from. That's not strategy. The essence of strategy is how can you create unique value as an organization to the customer? How can you do something distinctive in serving the customers that you choose to serve? And if you can create distinct value, unique value, not only will you win in terms of competition in serving those customers, but you'll also expand the pie. Because if we have a lot of companies in an industry competing in different ways, trying to meet distinctively different needs in uniquely different ways, the pie expands. More needs are met better. That's the essential concept of competition and the essential concept of strategy. How do we be unique? And this is, of course, the greatest challenge any business has because competition is this constant process of you come up with an idea and somebody else kind of wants to imitate you and this is an endless, relentless battle in any organization, in any industry. Now, what we mean by a strategy is not setting a goal. A lot of people confuse strategy with the goal. I want to be number one. That's my strategy. No, that's not a strategy. Strategy is more than a particular action. A lot of people say, my strategy is to go international. That's not a strategy. A strategy is the whole set of choices that a company makes to distinguish itself in the marketplace. And strategy is not the same as kind of a broad concept, a vision or a mission. We want to change the world. We want to improve health. You got to go beyond that in strategy. You've got to be specific. How? Specifically, are we going to do better in addressing this mission than our competitors? That's what strategy is all about. Strategy is fundamentally about choice. It's about making choices that are different choices than your competitors are making in whatever business you're in. Now, by the way, I'm talking about business now, but every NGO in this room and every government entity in this room needs a strategy too, following exactly the same principles, even though you're not competing in a for-profit market per se, but you're competing to serve customers and meet their needs uniquely well. So every organization in this room needs a strategy, not just the companies here. Now, when we think about strategy in a business context, we have to think about strategy at two different levels. We need a strategy for each business that we're in. And Nestle's in a lot of businesses, so Nestle's in food products, and Nestle's in water, and Nestle's in a whole variety of other products. For each of those business units, we need a strategy. But we also need a strategy for the overall corporation. How does it all fit together? How do we construct the portfolio of businesses that we're going to be in? Or in the case of an NGO or a government entity, how do we construct the set of programs or efforts within our overall enterprise? That's what we call corporate strategy. So let's talk a little bit about those two issues and how we think about them, again, very briefly, but hopefully in a way that will start to help you understand how to think in more powerful ways about the shared value opportunity in your company. Now, ultimately, competition is all about creating superior performance, being more profitable. How can we be more profitable than a competitor? Well, there's only two ways of doing that. One is we've got to invent some needs that we can meet better. Features, functions, services that we can provide that our competitors don't want to provide or can't meet as well as we can. And that's what we call differentiation. And differentiation allows us to charge a higher price. Okay? The other way we can be more profitable is we can figure out ways to deliver needs, meet needs well, perhaps not uniquely well, but we can meet needs well, but we can meet the same needs more efficiently. We can find out a way to do it cheaper. And if we can, maintain roughly equivalent prices and do it cheaper, we're going to be more profitable. Okay? So all search for competitive advantage and profitability has to do with either driving up the price because we can meet needs better, or driving down the cost because we can meet needs more efficiently. That's what competition is all about. And by the way, this is true in any industry, including fields that you nonprofits and government entities are in. Now, in order to do that, we have to look at our business. And the tool we use for looking at our business is the value chain. The value chain describes what we do to create value for the customer. And we do marketing things and service delivery things and manufacturing things and technology development things and human resource things. Every company is a set of activities that collectively create the ultimate value for the customer and also collectively create the cost required to meet those needs. And the basic idea is that if we're going to have competitive advantage, if we're going to be differentiating, that differentiation is going to come from some things that we choose to do in the value chain. We may have better sales force. We have better customer service. We might have product designs that are more higher functionality. If we're differentiated, it comes somewhere from our value chain. It's a choice we've made about how to do something differently than our competitor that gives us a unique product or a unique service or a unique value proposition. If we're low cost, it's because we found some way to do something in the value chain cheaper and more efficiently. For example, by using less raw material, because we're much better at kind of recycling and closed looping our production process. And that allows our costs to go down. But we can trace all competitive advantages to specific choices we make about how to compete in the value chain. Okay? And as, of course, where we're going to get to is, of course, shared value opens up a whole new world here. And we'll talk about a little bit of that in a moment. Now, the next key idea in strategy is that if we're going to have a real strategy, strategy is not the same as just imitating best practices. We've always got to be getting better as an organization. We've got to be embracing the latest ideas and technologies and concepts for management. We've got to be raising the bar all the time in every company. We've got to be looking out there and finding all the new ideas that allow us to operate our business better. But that's not enough. Because if all we're doing is imitating other companies' best practices, are we ever going to have a competitive advantage? Probably not. At best, we'll sort of have a little advantage for a short period of time until somebody else imitates those same best practices. The ultimate sense of strategy is not trying to do the same thing a little bit better, not imitating best practices. The core idea of strategy is coming up with a unique positioning that creates distinctive value for the customer. Okay? So let's talk about that a little bit more. What we know is that in order to do this, we got to meet 5 conditions. When we look at the strategy of any organization, we're always asking 5 basic questions. First, what's our unique value proposition? If we don't have a unique value proposition as a company, we have no strategy. If we're just trying to meet the same needs of the same customer in the same way, we don't have a strategy. We're going to get into a zero-sum competition about who can do that a little better. And it's going to be hard to win. What's a value proposition? Well, in strategy, a value proposition is answered to 3 questions. Question number 1, what customers are we going to serve? Are we going to serve every customer in our business? Are we going to focus on the sophisticated customers, the low-income customers? Just what customers are we going to serve? That's part of our value proposition. Number 2, which of their needs are we going to try to meet in our company? Are we going to try to meet every possible need in the space in which we operate? Or are we going to home in on a few critical needs that we are going to be distinctively good at addressing? That's kind of the second part of the value proposition. And then the third part of the value proposition is what price do we ask? Are we going to try to get a premium? Are we going to sort of match the price? Or are we actually going to offer a discount, a lower price? Because we're so efficient that we can actually offer a lower price and still make more money. Okay? These 3 questions collectively define the value proposition of any organization. And the key idea in strategy is it's got to be different choices, different answers to these 3 questions than our competitors. Because we're trying to serve the same customers and meet the same needs at the same price. We don't have a strategy. We're just competing on who can do the same thing better. And we're unlikely to sustain success in the long run. These are some of the key fundamental principles of strategy. And as I'm talking, every one of you hopefully is clicking through your own thinking in the organization about how you're competing in your markets and answering the question of, is that going to work? Second key question in strategy is, how are we going to deliver that unique value proposition with a different way of operating? If we're going to have a unique value proposition, we're going to have to do things differently. If we market the same way and manufacture the same way and have the same supply chain, it's unlikely that we're going to be very different. So we've got to have made different choices about how to operate the business. And that's really the second test of a strategy. How are you operating differently in ways that connect to your value proposition and reinforce it? You know, here's a classic strategy example I use a lot in my strategy courses. This is not a shared value story. This is just a good strategy story. All of us probably know this company, IKEA. Remarkable, amazing, global success story. It's a furniture store. It's a furniture store. Everybody knows exactly what IKEA does, but really nobody's been able to imitate this company for 40 or 50 years. And they are enormously profitable. Okay? Why are they winning? Because they have a unique value proposition, which you all know. It has to do with well-designed, high-style, modular furniture designed for relatively small living spaces at very, very low price points. You get really nice, well-designed, well-made stuff for a sort of amazingly low price. How did they get that done? Well, they got that done by thinking differently about how to run a furniture store. How to source, how to design, how to provide service in the store. In IKEA, there is no service in the store. If you see somebody with an IKEA uniform on and you move towards them, they'll usually run in the other direction. They don't provide service. They've made a choice. We don't need to do in-store service. Because we have a lot of tagging and displays and a website, and our customers are perfectly happy to ask their questions on the web and read something in the store. They don't need a service person or a salesperson following them around and explaining stuff. That's not what we do. In IKEA, as you know, they want you to take this furniture home yourself. They're not going to deliver it. They want you to deliver it yourself. And then you have a Christmas-like experience of, assembling the furniture when you get home. Those are choices IKEA has made to allow them to deliver this really well-designed, well-crafted furniture at this egregiously low price point. They avoid a lot of the costs that a traditional furniture store spends. And it goes on and on and on. You can see some of the other choices they've made. This is what allows organizations to succeed. They have a clarity about who they are, how they're delivering value, and then they make that real through the choices they make throughout the way they operate their business. That's what great strategy is all about. As you can see with the case of IKEA, one of the most fundamental questions in strategy is not what you do. It's what you choose not to do. All great strategies require you to not do things. You can't try to serve every customer's needs. You can't try to meet every request of that every customer has. You can't try to meet every need. You have to decide what you're not going to do. Is IKEA the best furniture store? Well, in strategy, that's a bad question. There is no best furniture store. There's lots of valid ways of producing and selling this product. It's not that one is better than the other. That's not the test of strategy. The test of strategy is, are you unique in delivering incredible value for the needs and for the customers that you're trying to serve? That's the big question in strategy. And IKEA gets a resounding yes to that question. Now, I personally don't like IKEA. I don't think they're bad people. I just don't like to take home a box and assemble it. I don't like to pick up and deliver my own furniture. I would like some sales help. I kind of like a little bit more customization in terms of the choices I have. In the IKEA model, basically, it's you can see what they have, and that's what they have. IKEA doesn't move me. But a good strategy, that's a sign of a good strategy, because if every customer in the whole industry, if you're trying to make every customer happy, you won't have a strategy. You have to make customers unhappy to have a strategy. You have to figure out what customers you're trying to make happy and what customers really never going to reach them. Because if you don't make those choices, if you try to meet every need of every customer, you'll never win. You'll never be good at it, you'll never be unique, and you'll never have an advantage. These are the key concepts of strategy. Now let's turn to shared value. Where does shared value fit in these core strategy principles? Well, I think all of you kind of probably know, but let me just talk a little bit about that, because what we find is shared value is the most powerful creator of opportunity to really address those things that make strategy come alive and allow you to be different. Because it opens up new needs. All of a sudden, we think about needs differently. We're not selling food, we're selling nutrition. Aha, look at all those needs. When we were just selling food, then, we were sort of copying each other. But when we talk about, creating nutrition, then all of a sudden, a whole new world open up. And that's happening in the food industry, although I think many would like to see it happen faster. Shared value opens up new markets. The pharma industry, can we sell drugs to poor people? Of course. If we do it differently, there's a whole new market. That market was revealed by shared value. There's new ways of configuring the value chain. Do we really need all those trucks delivering all those products? Do we really need all that packaging? Do we really need all those raw materials? Can we reorganize how we purchase? Shared value opens up all kinds of opportunities to do things differently in the value chain and, again, allow you to win. Another very unique thing about shared value is it starts to put the focus on some of the external constraints to a company's productivity. Things outside the company that are holding us back from really driving efficiency and driving productivity and driving quality in the business. And there's many, many examples of that. Shared value kind of makes that obvious, but most companies never thought of that before. They were focused on what was going on inside, not what's going on outside. So you can see that shared value is a way of just really opening up a new way of thinking about the business you're in. What you do, what you produce, who the customer is, what you sell, how you operate, that's its power. This is not about being good. This is about thinking strategically and creating more value, which allows you to be profitable and grow and gain market share. That's what shared value is all about. It's not you don't sacrifice anything here. It's all about increasing value. That's what shared value is all about. There's some wonderful, marvelous companies, and I think some of the most striking success stories in shared value just illustrate all these points. Discovery Health, or now Discovery. A company that is able to think about, I'm a health insurance company, but I'm all about improving health. Does your health insurance company live every day to improve your health? Probably not. They process claims. They deny expensive services to keep the cost down. But Discovery Health has paired a health insurance plan and a wellness program in a very unique combination designed to drive health. And what happens when your subscriber to your health insurance program is healthier? How does that affect the health insurance company? They pay less in claims. They're more profitable. This company is one of the most profitable health insurance companies on the face of the earth. And the profits are a sign that they're creating this profound social benefit, which is healthier subscribers. Okay? This is the shared value promise. This is the shared value opportunity. Typical health plans are competing on little tiny differences that don't matter. That's what happened to us in business. We started competing on sort of imitating each other on little features and functions and little onesies and twosies. Shared value gives us a way of rethinking competition in our field and deciding to go off in a totally new direction. That's what shared value is all about. CVS Caremark. Most of us, all of you, many of you know this company. It's a drugstore company. It started out as a drugstore company. And the drugstore looked like drugstores have always looked. And they were, coming up with clever ideas to, how can I fill the center aisle with Valentine's gifts during Valentine's Day? And they had all these promotions to try to tap into more revenue doing stuff like that. And then one day, they woke up and they said, wait a minute. And again, here's another health example. There's a lot of health people in the room. This company said, I don't think we're going to win that way. And I'm not sure we want to win the way we've been competing. Let's win by thinking about health. And they're transforming their business. And what role their pharmacists play, what role their other staff play, their in-store clinics. And, strategy is about choice. Strategy is about what you choose not to do. And it's just on this slide, you'll see one thing they chose not to do. We no longer sell tobacco. We no longer sell tobacco because that's not who we are, and that's not how we're trying to create value anymore. That cost them $2 billion to not sell tobacco. Cost them $2 billion of revenue. But it is unlocking a much bigger opportunity because of the unique value that they are able to create. And the coherence with which their company now is approaching the market and the fundamental benefit that they're trying to serve. This is shared value driving strategy. Why didn't they think of this 10 or 15 or 20 years ago? Because they didn't think this way. They were looking at, I'm in the drugstore industry, here's my competitors, here's how we're all operating our stores, let me see if I can figure out a little bit better way of doing that. This is about changing the business, changing the game. And that's the shared value opportunity for business. And that's the shared value opportunity for NGOs that work with business to help and assist and participate in this process. In terms of corporate strategy, the portfolio, how do we think about a giant diversified company and think about shared value and how we can unlock and transform who we are? And we've told the Nestle story many times. Nestle said, let's look for where the breakthrough is going to come from in shared value thinking. And they focused on health and nutrition, of course, but they also focused on rural development and water, which is really critical to their supply chain, their sourcing, which is a huge and very high-cost part of their business. And they had the hunch that the opportunity for breakthrough change in their businesses across their portfolio was going to come from here. And I think they're putting that into place as we speak. Remember I told you about Discovery Health and the health plan. Look what they've done. They've built a whole portfolio now of businesses that all share this fundamental, unique value created by linking whatever the product is to health. So their life insurance company is unique, not because life insurance, life insurance was about actuarial analysis, setting a price for your policy, and then that price was the policy you had to pay for the rest of your life. And so they looked at you. You had a medical exam, and then based on your age and your health status, you'd get a price for your insurance. What these guys have done is they said, okay, we'll start out with a price for your insurance, but if you participate in the Vitality Wellness Program, and if you make progress, we're going to reduce your life insurance premium. The healthier you get, we'll keep adjusting your life insurance premium down over time. Or if you're working in the opposite direction, you might have higher life insurance premiums going forward if you're not taking care of yourself and if you're abusing your health. Okay, so you can see a core idea in one business is profoundly powerful in another business. And I won't go through the whole Discovery portfolio, but here's a portfolio now that has tremendously synergistic. It's based on a common set of values and principles that they've applied to business after business. And what an amazing company. Start out with a couple of guys in South Africa, zero. And because of the shared value insight, they built a multi-billion-dollar, extremely profitable company that is now increasingly global. And, I just can't wait to see what they can achieve. Danone. Here's a company that had a diversified food business. And they asked themselves, really, is this portfolio make any sense? Are these businesses that we're in coherent? And their conclusion was, well, not really. We've somehow strayed from our core. We got into the meat business, we got into the beer business, we got into a variety of businesses, and there was no coherence, and we didn't stand for anything, and there was no leverage and synergy across our portfolio. So they got out of a bunch of businesses that didn't fit and got into some more businesses that did fit. This is the power of shared value. This isn't something on the side. This is at the core of what leaders and CEOs and business leaders, this is the most important thinking and things and choices that they have to address. And shared value is right in the middle of that. And that's why it's a big deal. And that's why we believe that the more the people in this room can think this way and really understand this, in every single industry, and in every company, we can actually make enormous progress in making business profitable and growing, but we can also make enormous progress in health, in water, in nutrition, in environmental impact, in virtually everything that matters in the world. And if we can do it this way, we can scale. We can scale. And we want investors to work with us rather than against us. And this is something we'll talk about with Elizabeth. How can we get investors thinking this way about how big this opportunity is, rather than thinking short term, rather than thinking narrowly, rather than thinking traditionally about the businesses and judging us that way? And we as investors have tried to embrace social purpose, they've been going on a journey, and their journey started with screening out, bad companies, and then their journey turned to looking for companies that were doing well on ESG indicators, fairly broad general indicators. And impact investing was really turning a corner and starting to focus on, wow, if we found companies that really had some of the social purpose at the core, they could transform their industries. But there's a much broader opportunity for investors here. Investors can, their best investments will come from the best insight into shared value in all the companies they invest in. Because the companies that think this way will do better. And the investors that think this way will do better. So we believe that the next big challenge, and we need more investors in this room, is to get investors to understand the same opportunity, the same business opportunity as I think we are starting to understand. These are the fundamental concepts of strategy. I think hopefully we can all see a little bit better now where this shared value thing fits. It's not a detail, it's not on the side, it's not an add-on, it's not kind of a nice thing. It's none of those. This is about everything that's critically important to the success of a company in competing in its industry.